This is an HSC podcast hosted by students and for the students, where we talk about all layers of your well-being.
The views and expressions said in this podcast episode belong solely to the guests of this episode. They do not represent one structure or population as a whole. If you are concerned for yourself, a friend, or a fellow HSC student, please reach out to the care team at 817-735-2570, and they can help you navigate your crisis.
Welcome to the brand new student-led podcast from the Be Well team. I'm your host, Dhruvi Pradhan, a second-year student at the School of Public Health, and this is my co-host, Sophia Brockman.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I'm with the Office of Care and Civility. I serve as our student services specialist, so I do a lot of our compliance programming, social media management, and now I get to co-host with Dhruvi.
Welcome to Wellbeing Unlocked, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with students at the Health Science Center. Today's episode is all about the well-being domain of community belonging and how it impacts students here at HSC. Communities have an incredible capacity to drive connection, empowerment, and resources. As students in healthcare professional programs, you are educated and trained to serve communities. However, participating in your communities does more than strengthen them and potentially improve others' well-being. It also enhances your well-being as an individual through fostering personal connections. I'm joined today by Kush, a dual degree student pursuing both medical and public health degrees at TCOM and the School of Public Health. Kush, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so thank you for introducing my name. My name is Kush, and just to give a little background, I was born in Georgia, and then when I was 4 years old, we moved over here in Texas because my parents had better job opportunities. So I grew up in Huntsville, Texas, and then I went to undergrad at A&M. And then after I finished undergrad, I got accepted into medical school at UNT-HSC. So I came here in Fort Worth, so that's how I ended up here.
Any hobbies that you want to talk about? Like, what do you do in free time?
Yeah, so in the little free time that we get, I usually like to walk on trails or hike. I really like the Trinity Trails. It's really close to my apartment, so usually you can find me there. Or I also like to watch TV and relax and play some video games. But other than that, those are mainly some of my hobbies.
Oh, wonderful. Trinity Trails, I get that because it's a beautiful place to walk, especially when, like, sunset. We've watched the sunset at the Trinity Trails, and we're like, oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I still want to go kayaking. I have not kayaked on the Trinity Trails yet.
Well, you can do that? I think you can do that.
That's such a Texas thing to kayak. We find a river and we're like, you know what we need? It's just a small boat.
To go kayaking every weekend.
Yeah. What are you currently watching? Are you binging anything?
So right now, I was watching on Amazon Prime. It's called Invincible. It's like this anime cartoon. Have you seen it?
I haven't watched it, but I'm a big fan of adult cartoons.
Yeah. It's kind of graphic if anybody's thinking about watching it. But
Thanks for the heads up. All right, so before we usually dive into our discussions, I begin my episodes with a few icebreakers. So let's start with your word for the day.
Yeah, I want to say my word for the day is clarity, because sometimes I feel like we react to certain situations out of stress, out of fear, just unnecessary responses. And I feel like when we have clarity over the situation, we stress a little bit less and just go about the situation a lot more differently.
Love that. That's a new one, isn't that?
Clarity?
Mm-hmm.
Clarity?
Moving the microphone. That's a new one. I love that. What about your intention for the day?
Yeah, so my intention for the day today is just kind of wind down. It's been a long week, kind of getting used to the new rotation that we've been on. And it's also Friday, so just want to wind down and relax.
All right, and finally, what's one self-care item you're relying on today?
Yeah, so for my self-care today, I do want to go to the gym today. Kind of like I was mentioning, I've been struggling with kind of adapting to the new rotation, new environment. So all of my usual regular things that I do, like working out, kind of goes out the door. So I want to start building that regularity today.
Would you do that? The thing is, I decide every day. Today is gym day. Let's go to the gym. Today is the day. And then it doesn't happen. Then I have 2 assignments due tomorrow. Do I have the time? All right. So tell us a little bit more about how you got into a dual degree program like TCOM with SPH. That's a combination that's hard to manage at the same time.
Yeah. So part of the reason that kind of pulled me to that direction was just the aspect of public health helping the community and addressing system level changes. And that's one of the things that I find that's really important to me when I go into my future career, my future whatever specialty I end up practicing in. I really want to work on building that system level change. And I felt like having an MPH with my other degree would help me out a lot. And then, already it's opened so many doors for me, and I feel like it's been super helpful.
All right. So now that you're in dual degrees, you've created like a community, right, with your friends, with patients, or with people you meet every day. So connecting with these communities, how do you manage to do that? Like, how do you connect with these different types of communities with people from different backgrounds in your placements or just like work environments?
Yeah. So even, I guess, recently with my clinic, so I'm on my surgery rotation right now, and there's many different people. You have the surgeons, the nurses, and just all the different techs that are there. And I would say in the beginning, it's really hard to form those relationships because when you walk into surgery, everyone's like super strict, super uptight. Like, I just remember the first day, the surgeon was like, go ahead and go into the OR, introduce yourself, and then kind of just get started with everything. So me and the other medical students were like, yeah, sure, we'll go. And then I go in and just say, hi, good morning, my name is Kush, blah, blah, blah. And then the nurse just looks at me, points to my eyes, and then just glasses. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And then the other medical student was like, she's probably saying that you need to go get your safety glasses. I was like, oh, okay. So it's just like, after having that impression, I'm like, okay, this is like a super strict environment. And it kind of felt like it was hard to connect with people in the beginning, just because surgery is such a high-risk environment. And I kind of, over, the past 2 weeks, came to understand that. And I think what kind of helped me was that, these are regular people. They enjoy having regular conversations. So, like, when you're talking to them outside of surgery, they're more than willing to talk with you, even make a couple of jokes here and there, and that kind of lightens the environment. So I felt like, just remembering that even though this is a strict environment, they're regular people at the end of the day, and that's kind of helped me connect with more people.
Do you get kind of like whiplash when you're connecting with like those very rigorous and like, by the book environments like your residency, and then like versus like in public health, like I feel like we just kind of josh around on our group projects and whatnot. I feel like that would give me whiplash.
Yeah, it's very different. I think just being on surgery in general has just been like super overwhelming because every little action, they're like, why are you doing that? Like, don't do that. And just another scenario I just remembered, like I was standing right next to the surgeon and he was like, I want you to swap places with me. So I was like, okay, I will just go behind you and then come over there. And then I did that and he was like, why'd you do that? Don't ever do that again. And I'm like, what did I do? He was like, you're never supposed to walk behind somebody with your front facing them. You always have to have your back. So you have to have like, you have to turn in like a 360 around them. So I'm like, there's just so many little things. And it's just like, it feels like it's hard to talk to people who are so uptight, but it kind of gets better once you're out of those environments and having those conversations. I thought those were helpful. But, as you were saying with the SPH projects, it's definitely more, casual, so it feels more nice and easier to have those connections for sure.
I would hope public health would feel easier.
We're hoping.
And I'm like, if we're tougher than surgery, then all right, I'll pat myself on the back.
Right. So when you approach, like she said, you kind of have to change yourself a little bit, or you approach a little bit when you're approaching different kind of people, right? Does that take a toll on you sometimes? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you have to, do you compartmentalize it? Today, since I'm in surgery, this is how I'm supposed to be. And then after your rotation, when you go back to your friends or you go back to school, you're like, this is how I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's really tough. So it's like, usually I have 7 to 8 hours of that. Okay, Monday through Friday. Okay. And then after you get back, you need to like study because we have this shelf that comes after, the surgery rotation finishes. So having 7 to 8 hours of that and then 2 to 3 hours of studying. And it's really hard when those 7 to 8 hours aren't enjoyable. So I think one of the things that kind of helped me was understanding why some of those situations happen. Like, why is the surgeon so tough on you, or why is the nurse so tough on you? It's because surgery, as I was saying, was a high-risk environment. And, when they were training, they were probably also put in a similar environment. So, they just kind of passed that on. And once I kind of understand the intentions behind some of their actions, it kind of helps me because I know they're not intentionally trying to hurt me, or they're like not trying to insult me in any way. So that kind of helps me a lot. Kind of like, I guess, compartmenting some of those thoughts and just, putting that away. I think that definitely did help a lot.
And when you have these like difficult rotations, I'm pretty sure you might feel like a little burnt out, right? Just with studying and doing what you're expected to do as a doctor now that you're going for rotations. So do you think that leaning on these communities that you formed, that helps you prevent that burnout a little bit?
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like just relying on different people helps out a lot, because when you talk to them, then they'll actually help you. Because if you don't talk to them and you're just kind of isolating yourself, you won't get any help. So, like, I guess pulling more from my surgery experience, after, the first week finished and I was talking to some of the nurses afterwards, we were having casual conversations. I was saying, I was kind of struggling with, suturing and stuff. And she was like, oh, do you need any suturing material? And I was like, yeah, I don't have any suture needles anymore. The ones I got off of Amazon are like super hard to work with. So she was like, yeah, I can give you some of the sutures that, the surgeons usually use. And, just by having those casual conversations, they kind of help you out where you're struggling with. And the other part of it is that a lot of these healthcare workers also have a lot of jokes. So they lighten the mood a lot with humor, and I like that a lot.
That's fun. That's fun. I mean, my father's a doctor, and when I was a kid, I wouldn't say that young, but sometime like 5th or 6th grade, my dad used to take me with him sometimes just for like rounds, and he would leave me with the nurses because I had, nothing to do. I couldn't follow him with his patients. But I do know that the nurses used to joke a lot. But when my father was in the room, they were dead silent.
Yeah.
That was like completely different. The moment the doctor enters the room, they're like completely silent. That these new people, this new side of them that you see, that they're so strict, and like not a single mistake is tolerated. But as soon as he's out, they're just joking with themselves. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I totally relate to that, because one of the things that I look forward to is once the surgery is like finished, then the surgeon leaves, and then it's just like the nurses and us medical students, and then the environment is way much more lighter.
Well, I feel like that showcases like the environment changes, of course, but then also like you're looking to somebody else to assess like how like that community is being formed almost. And so it's always really interesting to see like the ringleader of it all, and when they're gone, everybody's kind of like, oh, okay,
I can breathe.
Yeah. And it's like, here's this really dark joke I have that I've been sitting on for 3 hours that I can finally say.
I know. So like that's how I think you build communities, right? You know how to talk to certain people after you've known them for a little while, and be like, I cannot be my goofy self with this person, obviously, because, hey, they expect some kind of professionalism from me. But maybe outside of workplace, like you said, you could be open with them and talk to them about how you're feeling, right? And do you feel that happens with friends too, like as a student, when you meet with your friends, your colleagues, and when you're working with them on projects, like when you're in a stressed out environment and you feel burnt out with them too sometimes, right? Because your surgeries rotation is on your head, and then you're suddenly in a group where nobody's listening to you at all. So how do you deal with that? Like there has to be like usually some time where you're like, I need to breathe right now.
Yeah.
Can you not be on my nerves?
Yeah, no, I have definitely had that situation before. And I think one of the things that helped me is talking to somebody else outside of that project and just making sure that what I'm like saying is reasonable, or if I'm just overreacting, because sometimes when you're stressed you just feel like you're overreacting to some things and you never really notice. So I felt like talking to somebody about these issues kind of helped. And then the other thing is just being transparent with your group members. I think telling them that, you know, I expect this, or I, you know, was looking for this instead, is super helpful, because I think where a lot of group projects fall apart is, you know, when the communication isn't very clear. So I think emphasizing that point would be super helpful.
But it's sometimes it's hard to talk to them, because you know that in your head what you're thinking is right, but they may have like a different view, and you also have to sometimes take their suggestions into consideration that, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. So maybe it's good to just understand what they're saying and take a middle ground and not just be like, no, I know I'm right.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. I feel like when you're in a leadership position, sometimes you feel like if you're switching decisions too much, you might seem like you're wishy-washy. But I think taking into consideration why they said that, you know, is there validity to that opinion? I think going into a deep dive into that would help out too.
Now let's shift gears slightly. So how has your sense of belonging supported your well-being and mental health, whether it's in an academic setting or a personal life?
Yeah, I feel like having a sense of belonging, if I did not have that, I definitely would feel burnt out all the time. Because I feel like when you're isolated, when you're alone, it's just difficult to go about your everyday task. Like, imagine you're spending 7 to 8 hours with people you don't talk to, people you don't like. It becomes much more difficult, and you're not really looking forward to that. And I think, to me personally, burnout is when you know, don't have time for the things you want to do, and you're just doing things you don't like doing. And I think if you can build a sense of belonging, build relationships with the people you're working with, it'll make the experience much more enjoyable.
I agree.
I agree with that. I feel like we've all worked with people that were just like, they're on schedule today. Great.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's hard because public health, you had to do it online, right? Yeah, same. And so I definitely felt isolated probably the entire time, just because you're just in these group me's and all anybody's doing is complaining in the group me's.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm having so much fun. And everybody's like, this class sucks, this and this. And I'm just like, oh, are we not supposed to be like happy?
Like, am I in the wrong year?
Yeah, and so it's so much harder to want to also like build that connection with those people, because you are just seeing them and you're like, guys, like, we're doing some fun things. Like, yeah, it's work, but like also I'm learning a lot about water that I never wanted to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I never knew it could be so interesting.
Right? Yeah, our environmental health classes, I'm like, okay, I see public health. I picked the right field.
I know, I enjoyed it too. I think sometimes it's just because there's everything just comes at you at once. Like online programs, I think are like 8-week programs, right? So everything just, it's like you have 3 assignments every week, and then this and that, and they're just like, there's too much work.
Yeah, I came like straight from undergrad, and you did too, essentially.
Yeah, yes.
And so it's like, I feel like we were just like, yeah, this is life. And you have a lot of students who are coming back, or they're like international students, so it's a very different structure. But yeah, I think like, you know, going back to that point of like, did you find like you're turned off like when people in your work environments are just complaining about the work the whole time, and you're like, oh, I'm not connecting with you. I'm not going to like try to have a conversation with you. And that kind of leans into that isolation.
Yeah. I would say it was the same thing for medical school as well. There were certain groups of people that just complained all the time.
I can see that.
It kind of pushes me away, because I personally don't like that complaining too much, because it adds too much negative feelings to it, and then I start feeling like this is so unfair. Like, why is this happening? Like, I'm getting like worked up for no reason when I wasn't even worked up in the first place. But I think just taking some time and talking with other people And, having those conversations is helpful to get different perspectives, because everyone's going to go through different emotions because they have different goals and different priorities. So I understand, why they may be complaining all the time, but just kind of being there for them as well, because they need that support system more than, we do as well, too. So.
No, but the negativity sometimes kind of rubs off on you, like you said, and then you feel down and you feel your mood just shift from I was okay or I was happy from why am I doing this anymore? I mean, I don't even know why I'm doing this course anymore. Like you said, community and being with people does play like a big role in your overall mental health, right? So how do you balance schoolwork and the community involvement? Because that can be challenging.
Yeah. So one of the things that helped me was prioritizing what I really want to do, because there's a lot of different activities out there, a lot of different ways you can get involved in the community, but I wanted to find what my niche, what my passion was, and just focusing all my activities around that, because I'll just be doing things that I like to do. I think one of the misconceptions or one of the issues that a lot of people run into when they first start something is that they need to do these things to look good for their resume, for their CV, and then they're in these like 5 to 10 different clubs, and then they don't like doing any of them, so then they just don't go to any of the meetings, and then when it comes time to when they have to talk about these in interviews or anything else, they have nothing to really talk about because it's just, they didn't really do much in them, and it wasn't things that they like to do. So just finding those few ways I can engage with the community helped me out a lot.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed, because like Kush, I talk to a lot of students, obviously, because my job, but I'll like students will be like, oh, like I want to do like dual program, or I want to do this, and I'm like, you gotta talk to Kush. I'm like, he knows everything there is to know, and they're like, and like a good chunk of them, they're like, I know of him. They're like, and I'm like, I can give you his email. And it's so funny because like you clearly do a lot. Like you're a medical student, comes with it. You're busy. You got volunteer. You got rotations, whatever. But yeah, like you're not traditional, I think, in the medical student like world. Like you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this survey like on my own, and I'm gonna go and like do this project by myself. And it's like everybody knows of you, and everybody like is excited to like if they get like the chance to work with you, they're like, yes, like I've made it. And he like you're just like not, you just don't do the like traditional medical student route, which I think it's interesting, and I think it offers like a different route for like community building and like connecting with other people, because you're not connecting with the same people. You get to actually branch out and kind of be like, yeah, I'm here. I'm doing it.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things on that point was that when I worked on one of those projects and I finished it, it gave me kind of the foundation for the next one. So it didn't take me as long to do the other one. And then when I was working in the teams, it was easier to delegate the task and then complete it much more quickly than doing it all together, or doing them out of a timeline.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've heard this. You did TCOM based burnout survey.
Yes,
is what you did. Yeah.
Wow,
and
that's news to me.
He's actually gone and done like presentations for like TCOM faculty and like staff. Like he's not just like a student. Like he is going off, and he's just like, listen. And so like you like that foundation isn't just like project based. Like it is like it's people. Like you're going and making those connections. So you have all these like people who are like, yeah, like we trust him, we have faith in him. Like he's gonna do great things, which is so important, especially in such a competitive field that you are in.
And surprisingly, I would say I don't think I would have been able to do any of this without School of Public Health, actually.
Oh, like plug us?
Plug
it in.
Okay. Shout out to School of Public Health.
Yeah. Because all the information that we were taught, like through intervention, like building, program building, all those, like once you know those, you have a set way you're attacking all these issues. And especially like the communication course that we had to take as well. Now I know how to format. If I want to send a proposal to somebody, I know how to send it. And they're like, oh, wow, nobody's ever really sent it to me this way. And you're like set on this, like you know what you're trying to do. So then people are more willing to do it. And I think all these projects kind of got set into motion from that knowledge base.
Also, like building these communities or slash just being with different people and building that trust with these people kind of helps you even in projects that you do, right? Because a lot of these projects, even in the future, if it's on a larger scale, you're going to need to know, going to need people to help you with it. And just building that trust or even just building those connections with people around you is going to help you a lot. I'm pretty sure it might have helped you, like even the projects that you've done so far, right? For like something that you're so passionate about. Is there any project that you did with, say, a team, like a group of people that you connected with, and it was on not a larger scale, but that helped you, like that was a foundation for other projects that helped you succeed?
Yeah, so I would say that project would be one of the pre-matriculation course that I made for medical students at TCOM. So what I tried to do was create a course that people can take before orientation. So this is like a live session with, medical students have already gone through the process, talking to the incoming students just about things that they could do to not make the same mistakes that we did and kind of get a leg up on some of these scenarios. And I worked with a team of students to get through that process. And I would say there were times, like we talked about before, there were like times where I felt like I didn't expect them to be doing things that they were doing, or like, the commitment. But I think kind of understanding their perspectives, where they were coming from. When I get locked into a project, I get a little too passionate about it, and I realize that other people don't share the same feeling for obvious reasons, because I also like thought of the idea, so I have more investment into the project. So I think just understanding their perspectives is a huge thing.
What made you do the survey on burnout?
Yeah, so after I finished that course that I was talking about, my primary goal was to reduce burnout. But, after that course was done, I didn't feel like the job was done. I didn't really feel like I did what I set out to do. And one of the things that I've started to realize is that we need more information regarding burnout so that we can address it better. And one of the things that I really want to do is understand more student views and how they're feeling, how are they going about things. And one of like the bigger projects that I'm kind of going to work on during my fourth year is building like this qualitative assessment, just understanding, talking to one-on-one interviews or focus groups with students to get those ideas of where we could improve burnout and how we can reduce them on an institutional level as well. Because I also feel like burnout isn't one-sided. It's not all the students' fault. I think there's this thing with the institution as well, how it's set about, that can reduce burnout as well. And, as you can see, even in the medical school community, a lot of things are going past fail, and that's in an effort to reduce burnout. So I think there's other things that could be done on the institutional level as well, but I want to figure out what those things are by, kind of assessing how people are feeling.
Yeah, burnout's a tricky subject. That's what I did my internship on. And there's not much literature on generalized people, especially in graduate school. It's all like nursing, PA, or I think like dentist. Like it was a very random health profession. But yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think that especially when it shows to students like, hey, like we are looking into this, like we do care, that helps build a sense of belonging on campus. I think that's great. You're doing great work.
Thank you.
Nothing need my approval of anything.
No, but that is great work, because today in our health communications class, that was my topic of public health issue that I kind of was interested in, was just the fact that how medical professionals don't really talk about their own mental health and how they are suffering themselves. So that's why I feel like burnout is one of the issues that I saw. Like they're just burnt out at this point. The long hours of shifts and toxic work environments sometimes, and also just dealing with deaths every day, and they don't know how to deal with it. And it's just a very tricky part of the profession, like just addressing the small part of like burnout. And I kind of went through the CDC campaigns and things like that. I'm like, it's so generalized. Burnout for someone is so completely different. Like burnout for you may be different from what I am feeling and what would result in my burnout. And just to see that there's just one whole generalized concept and generalized things that they do to help prevent that burnout, I feel like maybe we need to start tailoring more towards how a particular group of people are feeling instead of just being like, hey, you can do A, B, C, D.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I also feel like I don't want to force things on people, like, you know, forcing different types of interventions to reduce burnout. Because I feel like sometimes when it's ineffective and it stays there, it gives a negative impression on the students that, you know, even though these things are being done, it's not helping. This is just how it is. Like, there's no way to go around this. So, you know, they just stay in that state that they're in.
I think burnout's such a newer concept in terms of like education, the educational world, because it's always been identified as workplace burnout. And it just now got like introduced, I think, into like the ICD-10 or something like that, as like an actual complex mental health crisis. And so very slowly, I know a lot about burnout.
We're getting there.
Not because I've experienced it.
Not that I'm flexing, but me too.
Yeah. I think, well, and that's like, I remember being an undergrad, and that was the first time I heard about burnout, was one of my professors. It was like, you know, right before finals week, and she was like, I'm sure you're all burnt out. She's like, your students get burnt out every semester. And I was like, what is burnout? I was like, what are you talking about? And she was explaining it, and I was like, oh, I felt that way since, you know, I was a child.
For a long time.
Yeah. I'm like, have you met our generation? We're just born into this world, burnt out. But I think, yeah, it's such a complex issue, and I think more and more students are coming to terms with the fact that they have it or they could have it. And so we see a lot of students where I ask them, I'm like, how do you de-stress at the end of the day? And they're like, I go for a walk. I'm like, do you? I'm like, are you eating? Are you sleeping? I'm like, you need sleep or at least a nap.
And then we like that. Something that I really started liking is when you post those little tips on Instagram about how to deal with burnout or how to de-stress today or what have you done, like tips and tricks to like just de-stress. And I'm like I did that. Yay, that helps me. No, but it's really helpful.
Well, that's like, if you ever see anything that's like HSC student, like things that HSC students do, like that is me like actually like stopping a student on the side of the road, essentially. And I'm like, what do you do? I'm like, how are you taking care of yourself? And I'm like, got it. I'm like posting it to Instagram. And so I'm not lying to you. Those are actual HSC student tactics. But thank you for appreciating my hard effort.
And I think having those reminders is super helpful, especially for people like me, because sometimes I'm in denial about how I'm feeling. And then I'm talking to someone else and they're like, you're burnt out. That's why you don't feel like doing anything.
Exactly.
I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back and reevaluate.
Do you have any like cues that your body gives you where you're like, oh, I need to take a nap?
I would say when I'm just reading a passage and then nothing, like my mind's just blank and I'm like, what am I doing? My eyes are just moving back and forth, but nothing's happening.
I think that's what Maggie said. That's like a TCOM thing.
I think that's a TCOM thing. Because when we talked to Maggie last episode, she said the same thing. She was like, I can't just show what I'm reading anymore. And I'm like, okay.
And I'm like, mine is when I get like just angry while driving. And I'm like, I need to take a break from something. Gotta like go through the priority list.
Yeah, kind of the same. I kind of snap at the smallest things. And I'm like, no, that wasn't something I had to snap at. Okay, we totally went off topic. You know, do you realize that? We were talking about community belonging, and then we spent like 10 minutes talking about burnout.
Burnout's important.
Burnout is important, though. But like leading back into the topic, though, when you have people you rely on, like, you know, in a community, that I think that kind of helps you navigate burnout, and especially people hold you accountable, or at least tell you that I know for a fact, I can see your change, you're burnt out, right? And it takes a while to even accept that. Am I really? But I do have one assignment left.
Yeah, I feel like that too. I'm like, I have these things that I need to do in the day, and I'm not doing them. So that I'm like, I'm just getting behind, and that's just, you know, making me feel a little bit more stressed. And I'm like, what do? I need to take a break, but then I need to do this, and it's just like that conflict within yourself.
I know.
Yeah, I had a friend in undergrad. We like looking back, I'm like, we were accountability partners because we'd like text each other and we'd be like, have you eaten today? It's like, no, okay, let's go go somewhere like 45 minutes away so we're forced to take a break and forced to actually sit down and eat. And so that was always really helpful. And it sounds like you have that because you were saying like you've got people that are like, you need to stop.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, hey.
And it also helps talking to people outside of, your immediate profession, like the people you're with as well, because then you get a broader perspective of how small, this is, and like the bigger picture is you can take a break and then get back to it.
Great advice. So before we leave, do you have any last minute advice that you would like to give to a first-time student at HSC?
Yeah, one of the things that I would say is really set your priorities and your goals. Because as we were kind of mentioning before, you don't want to fall into the trap of joining so many different things and then just feeling overwhelmed with all the commitments that you have. And when you're trying to think about like the next steps, like your next goal, where you want to be, think about what's the highest yield things you can do to get there. So like for me, for example, like I want to get into a good residency program. What are the steps I can take that are, going to yield the highest results? Like joining 10 organizations isn't going to do that. Maybe I can do one organization, work on one research project, and then, one other thing. And those will help me more because research is sometimes viewed as higher than, an organization. So kind of really allocating your time wisely based on your goals. Super.
Very well said.
No, but great advice. Like, especially for someone who's just stepping into maybe a dual degree, even getting to medical school, I guess that's like great advice to understand what to expect when you come to a new environment.
What's the first step you'd recommend somebody taking for community building in school?
Yeah, I would say the first step is be on campus, on the campus events more often in the beginning, because that's when you'll meet new people. That's where you'll start forming your different circles. And I think the more exposure you have to those events, like, any of the student activities that are happening and such, you'll get to meet new people and then form those connections. And I think in the beginning, it's hard forming those because you're in a completely new environment. So going to those opportunities where social events are being hosted would help with community building.
I agree with that. I think from like an online student perspective, I wish I had like reached out more in the group meetings and was like, should we do a study group? Should we meet like via Zoom and like pretend we're in the same room?
Yeah, I would say that would be super helpful too, because I felt like I liked the online classes more when we were. There was like a point in time where the same group of people were.
We're all together. We're like, hey guys, carrying the group me over. What's up? And so I wish like when I noticed that, I wish I'd been like, should we just like all meet? Should we just FaceTime at this point? Drewby, what's your advice?
For like forming connections?
Yeah. What's your piece? I gave mine, Kush gave his. What's yours?
Mine would be just don't be afraid to go and say hi to people. Like, because a lot of people find it hard to just step towards someone and be like, hi, I am, or just introduce yourself and then go ahead from there. Because you're in a new place with different people surrounding you and you're just there like, who do I even go and say hi to? I don't know. What if they say no to me? What if they just look at me and be like, who are you? But no, because I felt that. I've been that person, feeling that it's okay to just be by myself. But after a while, it gets to you. And that's when you'd be like, it's not okay to be alone. Just go up and say hi. What's the worst that can happen? They say, who are you? No to you? I mean, that's a valid question because they don't know you. So just go up and say hi. I think that's something that I've learned from my husband because that's just what he does. Just gets you to know people. And if they don't want to know you, they can just say, I'm not interested, and just be okay with it.
Sometimes it's easy just to overthink.
But thank you so much, Kush, for sharing your insights and your experience with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I really enjoyed talking with y'all.
Thanks for letting us ramble at you.
Yeah, we just rambled on, but thank you for letting us do that. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Join us next time for another enlightening episode of Wellbeing Unlocked. Until then, take care and stay connected.